Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. It's Tuesday night. We're talking Prague. Today, we've got some special guests on the Zoom, along with myself, Chad Hutchinson, Eric Porter, and Louis Nasser. Welcome the guys from Echolyn, who have two new albums coming out very, very soon. They're here to talk about it. And I'm going to actually turn this episode over to Chad as I am still struggling with this cold and lack of vocal issues. So Chad's going to kind of drive the whole conversation and introduce the guys in the band. So Chad, I will turn it over to you and
Very
welcome.
good. Okay. For those of you who don't know these guys, let me give a quick history. Echolyn was formed in the late 80s as a cover band in the North Wales area of Pennsylvania called Narcissus. They started to write original material and released their debut album in 1991. 92, they released Suffocating the Bloom, followed by End Every Blossom, an EP, acoustic EP in 93. Then there came the big album, As the World, in 1995, March of 95 on Sony 550. Things happened. About 5 years later, they got back together and released Cowboy Poems Free. And that's where Jordan Pearlson came in on some percussion and drums. And then in 2002, they followed that up with their epic 49-minute May, as seen here. Um, and that was actually debuted at Nearfest to a crowd that had no idea what was coming. 2005 was the release of The End is Beautiful, which was supported by a European tour of all things. Many stories, including the song 15 Days, came out of that. And then in 2012, they released the double album, I See You Laughing, Ray. We know this, we know the content. Um, the This album, Echolyn, some people call it Window, double album. And then 2015 was the album I Heard You Listening. These guys have a great discography. If you don't know it, you're missing out if you haven't heard it. They've had uh, performances at Prague Fest in California, several at Prague Day in North Carolina, two at Nearfest, one at a Nearfest pre-show. And we're here tonight because they are finally returning with some new music in the form of two brand new albums, one called Time Silent Radio 2 and one called Time Silent Radio 7. So introduce Chris Busby, Brett Cole, Ray Weston, and Jordan Pearlson. Hi, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks,
Good
Chad.
evening. Thank you for having us.
I guess.
Did I get any of that wrong?
No, it sounded good to me.
All you hit them all.
I saw Chris nodding.
All
So
except for the one in Baltimore, Progscape.
Progscape, that was not Echolyn, though, right? That was
Didn't we
that
do
was
that
always
as Echolyn?
almost.
That was with Chris Lane. I don't think we played that with him. No.
Oh, right. My bad.
So I know the history better than Ray. Got it. Okay. So the album, all this new music has been in the works since before COVID, right?
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah. So give us a rundown on how things got started. What was the process like? I know Chris is a good 3 hours away from everybody now. So what's been writing and recording been like?
Chris, you should start because we went to your house first.
Yeah, I mean, it basically started just similar to what we're doing, just through communication. I reached out to Brett. I Heard You Listening had been out for a couple years, and it was like, you know what? We all probably have some ideas that we're sitting on. So I reached out to Brett and just said, would you want to come down to me in Southern Delaware? Bring your guitar. I have a piano in my house, and we'll just sit and start noodling around and writing some songs. And in one day, we basically had sort of a song and a half already up and running. And then Brett said, well, look, this is crazy. I should at least reach out to Ray, because if we race too far ahead without another band member, is this actually an Echolyn project, or is this like a side solo project kind of thing? So Ray got reached out to. He next came down a couple months later. The reason it took so long was we weren't doing it every week or sometimes even every month. Sometimes it was every 3 weeks, every 6 weeks. When COVID hit, we followed all the rules and actually did not see much of each other actually face to face since we were out of state. But yeah, over the time, Brad, I'll let you pick it up from there. But basically, it just sort of organically happened.
It wasn't going to be. It wasn't going to be an Echolyn record. It was just Chris and I and Ray. We're actually bouncing around ideas for names or whatever, it just self-titled. And then I forget who thought of asking Jordan. And as soon as we got him involved, it was like, we should just, this is like the song, like the three of us were always the songwriters for Echolyn. So when we got him back in, when Jordan back in, who had played with us, like you said, Chad, on Cowboy Poems, free, it just was a no-brainer at that point. It just sounded like, the same music we've been playing, years later, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, we almost said, how do we not call this Echolyn? Because it felt like the same band,
Yeah.
just maybe version 3.0,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
moving
and
forward.
it's worth saying too that it's not overwrought. We're not trying to do it. It's just this music happens when the three of us get together. It's hilarious. It's like, because we're all from different places, but when we get together, it just comes out as is. It's great. It's really cool. So it was really easy to write these songs. Just like it took me back to actually to all the stuff that we've written. It's just very, very quick, very easy. But with COVID and the way that we're doing this distance wise, it took as long as it needed to take, I think. We're all so busy with other things.
So does this, would you say these two albums sound, is it still an evolution? Like what would you say is different about this? Is Jordan have influence in how things sounded? Have you guys brought in other influences? What can we expect?
Well, distance is definitely part of that ingredient. And then also as we get older, we get, I think, just like anybody, actually, any of the things that you guys probably do, if you've noticed, you get better at your craft, whatever you're doing, whether it's raising a family or whatever job you have, you get better at it. And I think, I'm a better guitar player than I was. I'm a better songwriter. It took me a long time to find my voice, my and all that kind of stuff. And you just get better at your craft. You get better at anything that you're doing in life. So there's a little bit of that. And if we still get to write albums 10 years from now, hopefully there'll be progression in that way too. Did we try to write any certain style? No style or anything. It happened like it is, just because of the way we write. Chris can sit down at the piano and Ray and I could sit and we come up with stuff. Ray will throw out an idea and Chris and I immediately know what to do. The same thing happens with me. It's just very, 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 very easy. It's just great. There's nothing overwrought about it. I feel lucky to have Chris and Ray and Jordan in our lives because Jordan wasn't around when we were writing these things, but he just heard the tunes. It's so funny. One of the ways he would do this, I would play the song or we'd send it to him. He would just write it out on an iPad musically and then sit down and just play it. And it was like, oh, there's the song. That's it. Do a few takes and you have it. So it's very, very fast that way. A lot of the things that you're listening to with him are 1, 2, 3 takes of him just reacting to the songs. And it's so great. It's really spontaneous.
It's been a thoughtful process too. I think because we were forced to slow it down because of COVID, but also because of the distance. I think these are some of the most thoughtful, introspective, but also beautiful songs we've ever written because we had time, forced time to think about them. And so we'd all leave each other with a mix of what we did that day on an iPad of the three of us sitting in my little piano room. And then we all had time to go home and say, wow, that part's really spectacular. Why aren't we doing that 3 times? I think in the past, we sometimes did a part once because it was like, well, let's do that part once because it gets us to the next part. And on this album, we're being much more thoughtful and musical about it's perfectly fine to do that part 3 times because Chris will take a solo the first time, Brett will take a solo the second time, and the third time, it's just going to be beautiful vocal harmonies. And the songs kind of wrote themselves like they always have. But again, nothing forced. And the time really gave us the time to kind of sit back and be thoughtful about it.
It really helped. Sorry, go ahead, Brett.
No, go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
I was just going to say it helped me with writing words on this because, a lot of times I get stuck with where to go with certain things. And especially on the song Our Brilliant Next, I couldn't come up with a good idea of what Brett and I had the Amityville Horror and like lies kind of thing as a general base for the words, but I couldn't come up with a freaking story. And then finally it just clicked one day, and it took that kind of time, at least for me, to help find my way to go with words.
Would you say that your music is more, I don't want to use the term pre-composed, or does it come out of jams, or is it some of both?
We don't really jam. We've never been that kind of a band. It's more composition. Like one of us, the three of us will have an idea, put it. It just might be a chord progression, just on guitar or piano. Or Ray might just he'll pick up a guitar and start singing something, and then we just sit down and we write to it, and it happens very quickly. Even like when we would go to Chris's or he would come up here to write at the chateau, we might work on a song, but then one of us would be like, well, look, here's a little idea I have, just a couple little chords. And then, for instance, there's a song called Tiny Star on the album that Chris had some initial parts for. We never really sat down and worked on it together, but he had it. And I remember calling him one day. I was like, hey, that one idea that you had, I think I've got a melody and some other parts to come after. And we never actually sat down and worked on that, Chris. It just, other than, when we were at the last minute, we were just throwing ideas down, but we sussed that whole thing in a distance way. Jordan played on it, and then Ray and I started working on words and the arrangement and seeing how it would go. Just came out very easily. But nothing was ever jammed. No, we definitely not that.
Yeah. With the years we've been together, it reminds me when you have a really good friend and they can finish your sentence or they know what you're thinking. That's how we write music. And so we can just show someone a little snippet of an idea, like, I don't know where this is supposed to go. I don't know if it's a verse, a chorus, or an intro or whatever. And like Brett said, that one little morsel of an idea he ran with and said, well, actually, that could work as the start of that song. And then we'll kind of race it down this next path. And then we kick it to Ray. And Ray has a vocal idea. And it's like, oh, well, we got to go back and do that twice now because that's so freaking cool. So it's almost like silly putty in some ways. Like we're just constantly pulling the songs apart, but at the same time being very honest with each other that if there's parts or pieces we don't like, the sort of going phrase is, well, that'll go on your solo album, right? And we're okay. We're
I don't
okay.
think we had that. Did we? I don't think we had any of that on this collection at all.
There wasn't, though. In the past, that always was. But for this album, we actually pulled the pieces apart. And whatever didn't make this album will still probably show up somewhere. I'm a notebook nerd. I just write everything down and date it like it's a diary. And then if I can go back to it, sometimes, there's songs on this album from 2016, little morsels of ideas that it's like, if I get back together with Brett and Ray and we do an Echolyn album, maybe this song will end up on the album. And one of these ideas did. So
what? I wanted to bring this up real fast, Chad, this jamming thing. Because I stand corrected at like we would work with Chris and Ray, the three of us would work together at his house or my house, but sometimes we get done working on something and then we would just sort of start improvising at the end, and it just would fall into something. And at the end of our first single, I wanted to say this to you, Tiny Star, there is a little snippet of that. Now, I always had my digital recorder with us, so when we were working on a song, it wasn't even Tiny Star. It was something else. I just happened to be recording it. And that jam that came out was it's like a really cool idea. And you'll hear it at the end of the song. The end of the song hits, and then that jam comes in. It's just the three of us sitting in Chris's, family room, piano room of us just playing. I'm singing a line and Chris is singing and Ray's playing the bass. And it's just completely spontaneity, and it's great.
Yeah, it happened one time.
Once,
you recorded.
Yeah. And I recorded it and I put it on there. So you'll hear that.
So Brett, you threw a phrase out earlier that I wanted to ask about. The phrase chord progression. Now I know the titles of the two new albums have a 7 and a 2 that refer to chord progressions. Can you give us
the major 2, the major 2 and the minor 7. The major 2 and the minor 7. Yeah, I mean, as somebody that writes songs, you're always looking for new ways, creative ways to go about chord progressions. I love chord progressions. Chris is great at it too. He's an awesome chord progression guy. So we were talking about titles, and I suggested the major 2 for these two big major songs, because I use that all the time. Say you're playing in the key of C, the 2 chord would usually be a minor. It would be a minor chord. It'd be D minor. But if you play the major 2, that gets you to I could get you to an A major, which is out of key for C. Could also get you back around to G again, which is the fifth of C. So, you know, they're kind of like cool little terms like that, or uses of theory that, you know, I use all the time. Chris probably does as well. And we thought they'd be really cool, sort of like delineations between the album titles, and also go with obviously the number of songs, and then another sort of Easter egg that's on all these songs and all these albums that has to do with BPMs and song lengths and things like that as well.
So where did you get the phrase "time silent radio"?
I guess from some of the song titles. I threw around a bunch of ideas, and then these guys immediately hit me back, and we just landed on that, I think, and that's what we did, right, guys? Pretty much.
Yeah. We were all tossing out different things, and you know, we all had our favorites. But once you came up with the time silent radio, it was like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just know, yeah.
And a lot of bands will release an album, and the name of the album is one of the songs on the album. So at some point in this process, Time Has No Place was like, that should be the name of the album because that's a song. Radio Waves, that should be the album because that has and then finally it was like, well, you know what though? That means you're saying that one song is so important that it needs to be the album title. And at the end of the day, all of these songs are equally as important. I honestly can't wait for people to wrap their ears around songs like Cul-de-sacs and Tunnels or On We Blur, or songs that are just not what people might expect from Echolyn.
On We Blur, Chris, reminds me of our third album a lot. The way that song is, the way that you wrote it, and the way I'm playing to it, and the way Ray's sing. It just reminds me of the third album for me. That EP that we did in that spring of '93. It just has that beautiful sound to it. Yeah, I just love it. Yeah. I think it's my favorite mixed song on the album. I don't know why, but I just love it.
Just the way it all holds itself together.
Yeah, it's like chewy. It's good.
Can you guys talk a little bit about like how this is excuse me. Louis, go ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to ask a couple
write
of
it
questions.
down, Peter, and hold it up.
That's right.
Go ahead, Louis.
First of all, I just want for the record to say I fucking love seeing you guys. I haven't seen you in forever.
Oh man.
Somehow we all got fucking old.
You did.
I got
I have
better.
2 questions. My first question is, I love all I'm hearing about how you write your songs because it makes me feel like I'm not that crazy. But there is an element which I find very useful. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, which will be part of my second question. I find that this back and forth and building the Legos and finding the flow is really awesome. At least for me, it works great. But it's also great to sort of road test the songs, even if it's in an open mic. Like go and play them, start to end, and feel how they flow live and get some kind of feedback from people. Now, maybe just some drunk guy who hates you, whatever. But the point is, you know, get something has been very helpful, which evidently you didn't do. And that leads me to my second question, which is a little self-serving, which is simply this. Will it be finally possible that you guys play live? Can we do a double bill? We will drive to the East Coast from Chicago, but I really want to hear you live. And if it means that I have to bring out gear and do it, I'll do it. But it would be awesome to fucking do it, man. So please speak about this. I'm going to mute myself because I'm in a public space. But please.
Go ahead, Chris, Ray.
I'll tackle number one, which is kind of the roadworthiness. In the past, we pretty much always had the opportunity to do that. And we did do that, especially with Suffocating, the first album, As the World. But it's weird how we're not just a studio band anymore, but we've kind of become a studio band. And it's one of those things that because of the mileage, with me living 3 hours south of these guys, and also the fact that COVID shut us down for a while, and the fact that this is, you know, I hate to say it, a glorified hobby. Like it is. Like we just love writing and making music together. So we carve out time in our lives to do this for each other. And then the bonus round is that we actually record it and put it out, and the world outside of us actually cares still too, which is awesome. Way beyond awesome. But a lot of these songs were sort of road tested on our own in that we did spend hours and hours of time together and then a part with production things where Brett would take our ideas, fly them into an actual Pro Tools setup, and then kick mixes and ideas back to us so we could sort of feedback and react and respond to that. Now, did we ever play them in front of other live people? No, we did not. We played them in front of ourselves. But Jordan added a huge live element because back to what Brett shared before, all these songs were sort of modeled out ahead of time, minus drums and percussion. And as soon as he dropped the drum parts in, some of the songs pulled themselves apart and became actually even longer. Some of the arrangements changed and twisted. But there's a trust factor between all of us. I know Brett, Ray, and I probably have the most just in terms of we know each other. And we can look at each other and say, this is really special or this is really stupid. And we can name that and call that out and sort of get a song to the place that it needs to be. I know I would love to play live. This is part 2. I'll answer this and then I'll let Brett and Ray jump in. As much as I would love to play live, we're perfectionists. And to play live, we would want to really work hard to do that well. And I just don't know if our calendars and lives have that possible. It could be. I'm not going to say no, but it's
because just let me say, you guys have never recorded anything that was not great from my perspective. I'm talking to you not just as your friend, but mainly as a fan. I have loved Echolyn from day one. I've always been trying to get people to hear your stuff. I have bought your records to give people as gifts. This is more than just a hobby. And I understand what you mean because, of course, Zona Sombra is also a glorified hobby. But it's really important. And you guys are educators and you work in studios, you do whatever jobs, but you're basically, whether you like it or not, and I know a lot of Americans think it's pretentious, you guys are artists. You really are.
Yeah, thank you.
And as a result, I think it's really important that you take that aspect of it to heart. And people like me are always going to be willing to travel to hear you. We will always buy your record sight unseen. And I just hope that you will give it some thought. I know that 3 hours seems like a lot, and it is. It's not around the corner. But I am the bass player for a band that it's located in Mexico City, and I live in Chicago. So I know that it's a pain in the ass, and airports suck, but it's a possibility.
Yes.
And I would really, and like I said, I mean, it's a very self-serving thing. I want to see you play live. I'm just saying, I'll make it happen. We can figure it out. But I've been chasing this. I've been chasing you fuckers for all this time. You deserve to disappear from the stage. You did that tour, the tour when you went through Europe, and that was it, right?
We played in 2010 April. That was our last show, which was a great fucking show.
Yeah,
we kicked ass. The people that we opened up for, I got a talking to after that. I was just like, fuck you.
And guys, you can use the internet. There's that like Jam Kazam and stuff like that. You guys could rehearse and not be in the same room.
Yeah.
That can
That's
happen.
how we do it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Brett,
what's that software that you and Glenn were using? Is it called LimeWire or something like that?
Session Wire.
Session Wire, yeah.
Speaking of Glenn, can I throw that question out there?
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys, Glenn produced your major label release, and now you're working with him again. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, he came into the fold because
this is Glenn Rosenstein for those out there who don't know who he is.
Thanks, Chad. Yeah, Glenn Rosenstein. You can look him up. He came in because I was mixing this stuff, but I think by that point, because I'm so intimately involved with these songs, not saying Chris and Ray aren't, but because I listen to them all the time trying to work. I lost the plot, and I'm aware enough that I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make these do what they should do. So I asked him to come in as an outside source, and Chris and Ray and Jordan were like, yeah, let's do it. Sounds great. And I did. And it was great because when I worked with him, since last March, we've been mixing the album whenever we can. And it's great. He's been a great affirmator to come in and say, this is great, guys. Man, the production's really good on this. I love this. This is awesome, and this is what I need to do. And that's all I needed. I needed somebody to take the pieces that all of us put together, that we kind of laid out, and just make it feel the way that it should. And I went into it with an open mind and heart to let him do his thing, because I'm one of those people, like if I'm in a band, I'm working with the people. This isn't me dictating things. I'm working with Chris, I'm working with Ray. We all work together. It's a democracy. So bringing Ray or Glenn in, it was just like the same thing. It was like, I want to get his opinion on this, and let's just have him do his thing to it. And he did, and it was great.
How was it different working with him now as compared to 95 and you were youngins?
That's a great question. The humor was still there, and
It's a beat.
yeah, I guess it's pretty much the same. He's a great. We immediately hit it off. It was just like 30 years ago. We stepped back in 30 years. Here we are again. Now, to Glenn's credit, he's always tried to reach out to me over the years, and we've talked probably at least once a year. And he just reaches out to say hi, because honestly, he recording our album, he tells me, is like one of the best times he ever had working with a band, and that's pretty cool to hear. So he always wanted to just stay in touch. And one day, I called him up, and here's what happened. I basically was looking for somebody else to get involved with this, to clear some space around me. I asked Jordan, I said, do you think I should go down to Nashville and just find somebody down there? And he gave me some names, and I was like, you know what, let me call Glenn. I'll see if he knows anybody. Maybe I could run a couple of my mixes through a console down there and have somebody listen to it. Just give me some fucking fresh perspective. And I gave it to Glenn, and he's like, well, these are fucking great. Why don't I do it? I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Done. So we ended up doing that. And, he and I chipped away at it whenever we could. And yeah, we got done. The final masters actually last Wednesday. We signed off on everything. I got all the lengths of the songs correctly edited. We're good to go. So it was a really good process, and it was so nice to work with him again. I hope we get to do more.
That's awesome. Did you get any sense of his reaction to your maturity of style?
Oh, yeah.
I
no,
mean,
totally.
As the World is a completely different record than the kind of stuff
Now,
you guys are writing now.
he sees it, because for me, probably since 2012, the Untitled album, we hit a whole new stride. You know what I mean? Like, there's an authenticity there that's only been getting better and better. May was the first album for me that I'm like, this feels like a mature person that knows how to write a song. I have difficulty listening to earlier stuff, not in a bad way. It's my music, it's Chris's music, it's our music. But from May on, and then from the Untitled album in 2012, it's like we all started to like see what was going on. Now Glenn came into this cold, and he's like, he's like, Ray, you're bass playing. Why didn't you play bass on all these albums? I'm like, well, he did play on some of the albums, and he's like, your voices, you sound like you've finally found your voices. And he's like, these are songs. They're not, it's just not like a clusterfuck. It's like a beautiful thing. It's a statement of expression. And he recognized that. And frankly, it made me weep, because I've been in a vortex for so long with these guys. You don't have any feedback. And for somebody to come in that you trust and respect, and to say that, it just, like I said, it made me cry. It was just unbelievable. So he's one of the few people that I would trust. And obviously, my wife, Katie, I play this stuff for her, and she's like, this is fucking great. This is amazing stuff. Glenn's wife and kid, who hate all the music that he works on, as a joke, he's saying that. He's like, they love your music. They're like, this sounds like Queen or something. This is from, two people that don't know prog, but I think that's amazing. He's like, they love your music. It's really cool. So that's my Glenn stuff for you.
So one thing I was wondering about since May, that's kind of a good, you kind of drew that line in the sand there, Brett.
Yeah.
You guys have stretched out into long form a little more often. Obviously May is a 49-minute opus. You've got things like Island, which is 18 minutes, and then you've got two epics on this, one at 28 and one at 16. What has driven you guys to the long form, and how did they come about? How did they get so long?
it's just easy the way that like I said, it all goes back to that. We're not trying. It's just the way that it is. And we'll all sort of look at each other like, you know what, this one could be, let's see where this one goes. It's that way with all of them. But for the longer pieces like May or, Island, it sort of evolves, and we are intuitive with each other that the parts lead, and we know when we got to end it, and we all know that as a collective. It just sort of happens. I don't think we ever sit down and just be like, oh, let's write a long song. It just, right. I mean, May started as a little simple thing that I had on acoustic guitar, and then it went out from there. And the same thing with a lot of these. Chris may have, I think with Water in Our Hands, Chris had a nice chord progression, and that we ended up using throughout the song. And then I had a little song at the end, kind of like Suffocating the Bloom or something, that I wanted to figure out how to get to where we were in that part of Water in Our Hands. And the lyrics.
Is that Emerald? Is that the Emerald whatever piece?
No, that's in Time Has No Place.
Okay. Sorry.
The Water in Our Hands title comes from that acoustic guitar song that I had. And it just worked because of the lyrics that Ray and I were working on, and it felt like it should be there. And when you guys listen to it for the first time, I really hope, I still cry when I listen to it. It's a really powerful moment in this beautiful, well-constructed song. And it transcends, it's an othering thing where I feel like I didn't have anything to do with this. So,
and Lewis shared this earlier, but Glenn Rosenstein did too. This is where we do know that we're artists. When we're working on songs and writing music, it's very personal to us. And we know we're doing and going to places we've never been before. And we have our own moments of like the lump in the throat, or the crying in private, or crying together, where we're like, this is unbelievable that we're able to still do this all these years later. And then to take it to fans, and to take it to someone like Glenn, who we haven't worked with in 30 years. And he's like, guys, there's nothing you need to change here. All we need to do is make it sound great. Like, you've already made the art. Now we have to get it ready to serve up to the public, which is why we all just went down there together for the mastering. Because at that point, we're just giving it the final licks of paint. We're just making sure that everything has the same green checkbox that it would have had, on any other album we ever did. So
some of the mixes,
that's certainly one thing that I think people latch onto your music. Not just that it's great music, but there is that feeling of craft, of your artisticness, but that personalness, whether it's the lyrics or the melodies. I think there's a lot of, I think that is why a lot of people latch on, even going all the way back to Never the Same.
Yes. That song is an emotional sledgehammer.
Yes.
And the reality, dudes, is that your music has been a part of the soundtrack of my life, at least for 3 decades.
Wow.
And it's something that I don't say lightly, and that I value immensely. And I think, and I know I'm not alone. So you should remember that, because it's really, really valuable. And
thank you.
Yes,
a lot of people would really, I know people feel the same way. And I just insist on the release that you will get from a live performance. I'm just putting you on the spot here, not because I want to be a dick, but because I really think it would matter. And I think you guys would fucking love it. Plus, I've never heard you play with Jordan.
Yeah.
And when you change the drummer, everything changes in subtle but very important ways. So I'm very curious to I mean, the record I know is going to be dynamite, because you guys have always made great records. But the live show is where, and you guys had that, is where you elevate. Every good band does that. Live is where it all hangs together. And I'm really curious, because I think that with all the music in these 2 albums, the new ones, I mean, there's just a really good opportunity to try to explore that. I think, I hope, I'm just going to say for the last time, I hope you think about it. And if I can facilitate it in any way, we can talk, but we should do it. Okay. That's it. End of my soapbox. No more of this, but
no, I appreciate it.
That only cost $20 to make him say all that.
Hey, Ray.
Yeah.
Yo.
going to bring up something that we talked about with the lyrics about sort of the vulnerability of some of the songs that we've written. And I know you're someone who a lot of your lyrics are, I mean, Chad just brought it up, they're very personal. And sort of that being willing to go there and to write a song or a lyric that tells your story, but your story can be relatable to so many countless other people. I think about some of the songs on this album, like I'm still just getting into some of these songs, and yet I know them really well. Mm-hmm. But lyrically, sort of the messages and the storylines and things like that, I don't know if you wanted to expand on that a little bit. You're one of the main lyricists with Brett.
Brett and I we worked together on, I don't know how many, Brett.
Pretty much almost all of them, really.
Yeah, with like, well, let's go to cul-de-sacs. I kind of loosely based that off of a husband and wife that I work with in our dementia unit, and it's just something that everybody has to deal with parents getting older, and things happening, death and stuff like that. But I wanted to try to bring a little more of a light to it, and I got stuck in the middle. And Brett came up with he just sent me these 2 verses of something that he worked on, and my God, it just gave that song much more life than I could have imagined. The words just kind of fell in with the melody that I had in my head. It was serendipitous. Is that a correct word to use? The other one that we were working on, I think we had originally called it Day of Bills, but we're all facing money every day, every week, and that's kind of where we went with that one. Stretching our dollar to buy the next beer, to get that little bit of gas in the car, and we all have to deal with that. And it's just the way that we work together to say those things, but not really come out outwardly and say that.
Much more poetic, yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, just not the ordinary. I had to spend today. I had to spend $1,025 to get my car inspected. When we're done here, I'm going to go into the bank and take that $100,000 out of my savings and put it in the checking. Day of bills, motherfucker. But I new windshield and shit like that. I've put off for 3 or 4 years, and he's like, the crack is too big. We need to get it done today. Not to go off topic, but I know Peter put up something a little while ago when he was coughing, something about how the CDs are things are going to be packed. I didn't get the full text of what he said. Maybe
whether it's going to be separate or together or whatever.
They'll be shipped together. There'll be 2 separate CDs though, so they'll have cohesive artwork but yet independent artwork for each one of them. Okay, in which case I'm actually going to be working with an artist this Thursday to start that process. We're going to get the single out by Christmas Eve, and then we're going to have the full album out for all the fans that were unbelievably supportive for this thing. And I want to just get them both albums with some artwork of some form. And then the CDs themselves, we'll press those, we'll sign those, limited quality or limited quantity, I should say. And we'll get those out still before the March release. I'm hoping that we can get those out in February or early February or something like that. And they will be 2 distinctive packages.
Cool.
Yeah.
45 minutes each.
And the 2 digital full albums will drop on New Year's Day. That's the plan. Right at the start.
Yep,
on Chris's birthday, no less.
Chris's birthday. We were going to do. We had vinyl. We had vinyl in mind, but the only way that it would work would be to leave the 29-minute song off, because that's not going to fit on vinyl on a side. And the other ones could have fit on a double album with lots of space there. It would have been really, really good, high quality. But it just came back to like, let's do 2 albums. And I think I suggested it, and we were all like, yeah, this is the way it should be done. So that's what we're going to do.
Sorry, I just want
I
to
have
say
a couple of
go ahead,
questions.
Just go ahead, Luis. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right, man. I'm a little deaf, so as you can probably understand. It seemed to me when I was looking at your campaign that you had a very ambitious budget for the project, and I'm not sure how you came up with that number, but I'm hoping that you are still able to go ahead and do everything you planned. For people like me, would I be able to get it off Bandcamp, or will I have to buy directly from your website? Like, what would we have to do to get the album?
Yeah, so come release date officially, we'll put it up on Bandcamp. We can make good money there because it's a one-to-one sale, meaning someone comes in, buys the album, that money goes to us. Bandcamp takes a percentage, but it's okay. So yes, you can get it there. We'll probably put up the full res files and CD quality, and you can get it. We'll have the artwork there, the lyrics, the whole bit. As far as vinyl or CDs go, I don't know. It depends on the money that we are able to raise. I mean, it's going to cost us some money to do 2 independent CDs, 1,000 each, right off the bat, that we're going to have to sign, for people. So we'll have to figure that out. But if we are able to somehow generate some more money via the release date, then we'll see what we can do to do some other things. Now, as far as streaming, Luis, I don't know if you were thinking about this too, but streaming, definitely going to wait on that, because that avenue, not that it's bad or good or whatever, it's just that's the least way that we can actually earn some money to pay back ourselves and pay for the cost.
You don't have to explain that to me. Streaming is the death knell. I understand perfectly.
It is,
but
especially if you grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We all understand that.
Yeah.
Yep, I don't have to preach to you guys.
Exactly. But I was thinking that if you went through Bandcamp and you release on a Bandcamp Friday, 100% of it goes to you that day.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great. Thank you.
So you could time it like that, and I will buy the CDs as well as the downloads as soon as I can find them. But I was just worried when you didn't meet your mark. And I was hoping that there would be a plan B, and apparently there is, so that's cool.
Yeah, the plan B was basically like, we're going to eat the costs. That's the plan B. You know what I mean? We're going to do it ourselves because we're going to do it. We've never really had to do that because we've always been lucky that the energy that we created between 1989 and 95 was so intense that it just echoed out. And we were selling lots of records online. And we were being able to pay for every album. May was paid for. The Windows album was paid for. All those albums were paid for. After 2015, streaming went up. Everybody used it, and our money went way down. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. So we were hoping with the first Kickstarter thing to be able to get enough money that we were okay. We didn't have to shovel anything out of our own pockets, and we had some money that we could, hey, maybe we can do an extra 1,000 or 2 CDs, or maybe we can do this or that. But we'll figure it out.
But it's actually a good conversation to have, because people don't understand exactly how much it costs.
I know.
Not only time-wise, studio-wise, mastering-wise, artists.
Yep.
So people always complain about the price of the item, but they don't understand all that goes into it. So this is why I was kind of hoping, you've discussed it. You're going to have separate artwork for each one. Yep. The CD, even though most people don't seem to understand it, it's a form of plastic art. It's an object that has an intrinsic value in and of itself.
Yep.
So, I think that's part of the re-education that we have to achieve, is helping people remember or learn, if they've never learned this, that there is an important aspect of just being able to sit your ass down and listen to music.
Yeah, I agree.
And get involved and take the plunge. So,
yep.
And that's what you guys have always delivered, So I'm just hopeful that you get everything you need, and let me know how I can help.
Thank you, man. We're almost there. We're raising some good money now via PayPal, and we're getting really, really close. So we're going to make it happen either way, because we want to get this stuff out there. But we'll figure it out. I think we're going to get it.
Well, that's what I wanted to add to what Lewis was saying, was it still has to give you guys a big lift. I mean, you haven't had an album in 2015, I think, right? Was
correct.
And you still have fans coming. I mean, we're waiting.
Yeah.
So,
No, I
I
feel
hope
very
that
lucky.
I felt bad about the Kickstarter too, but you still did pretty well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, so
Yeah. I
congrats
assumed
on that.
I had
See, you're
assumed we were going to be able to sell at least 700 or 1,000 CDs. So I was surprised that we didn't. But actually, that's a testimony or testament to how the market has changed. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's
true.
just people aren't buying. I mean, even for me, I buy music through my Apple account, so I'll buy stuff there or through Bandcamp, other artists, and things like that. But I don't remember the last time I bought a CD. My car doesn't even have a CD player in it. You know what I mean? I listen to my account, my songs. I put them on here, and it's just the world has changed, man. It's weird.
The four of us still buy them all the time, right,
Yeah,
guys?
true.
Do you? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
great.
don't buy any. So, and Pete doesn't either.
Yeah, right.
That's great.
But it's funny. I mean, you do downloads and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's like if you don't have the physical, half the time I'll be scrolling through it. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that record.
Yeah.
I love having that stuff in front of me,
It's
but
fun to have that archive too.
it is too.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Believe me, there's a value in it, right? When you spend money on something and you attach that meaning to it, there's a value that happens, and that value is changing now over the past 10 years, good or bad. It's just changing, but we all know what that is. That value for the thing that we saved money for. We went out and bought it. We sat down and looked at the photographs, read the lyrics. It warrants an extra amount of effort to get into something. There's so many albums I bought when I was a kid. Like the first Yes album I bought was Relayer because I was like, I love that song, Yours Is No Disgrace, but what album's that on? I didn't even know. I bought Relayer and I was like, what the hell is this? But I bought it with my own hard-earned money and I listened to it 3 or 4 times and then I'm like, oh, I get it now. This is great. I don't know if you have that because everything is so ephemeral now. You just in one ear and out the other. You're just scrolling through a phone, listening to things. It's different, and it's okay, but it's just different.
True.
I mean, it's okay and it isn't. It's like I was saying, it has
Yeah.
been a devalue of art.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not the same thing. Even a CD is not the same as an LP.
Yep.
The CD has better audio quality, but let's just be quite frank and open here. We're among friends. You can't clean your weed on a CD. You can't inhabit the world of the music with a tiny picture. It's much better on a gatefold, right?
Yep.
And that's just part of the whole thing, right? I mean, you would sit with your friends and you would be poring over the stuff, and it was a ritual.
Yep, it's a ritual.
A life affirming ritual.
Yep, it's a ritual.
So this is what I love about your album. You hear it the first time and it's great, but as you grow with the album gains different. It reveals different things.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen to you guys too, because once it's out there, as you know, it's no longer really yours anymore. Now it's also kind of belongs to us.
Yeah,
And people are going to weigh in, and they're going to, so it becomes a communal thing. And I just want you guys to continue to make what you're making, and I hope that you get everything you need because it's an important record. Even though it's 2 records, I know, but it's this new statement, I think, is something that I've been waiting to hear for a decade.
Oh, thanks.
Pretty
Louis.
much. So,
Yeah.
So, and off of that, Luis, so the four of us that are here, real quick, I'm curious, like, what would be your favorite of the Echolyn catalog? I'll start. I'll say mine is probably May. And Brett, I know I've talked to you about this in the past, how that, and there's no direct meaning to that. It's completely up to interpretation. I've always thought of it as a guy who broke up with his girlfriend, got in his convertible, and drove cross country to figure out life.
I love that.
And even at one point I'd subdivided it into parts for myself and all that. But that song is just so epic, and there's so many themes and things weaving in and out. I just think it's unbelievable. I like your whole catalog, as you guys know, but May really kind of sits up there just on the top for me. Eric, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to do a Pete because Pete is doing his monthly show about albums that meant something to him.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going to give you a quick story behind this. I had a independent music shop near me, and unfortunately it's closed, been closed for years. But I used to go there. He used to order stuff for me. I'd buy. I walked in one day and he went, dude, I got a CD for you. And he held this up. I didn't know who you guys were at all. And it's a sentimental thing. It's the first thing I ever heard from you guys, and I've followed you ever since. But that record just means something to me because it's the first thing I ever heard from you. So,
Cool.
That's cool.
I
Thanks.
found that in the mall bargain bin for $5.
wow.
Awesome.
Oh well.
Luis, you're on mute, bud.
You did.
I think everybody knows this story, but I'll tell it again because it's true. I've known these guys, like I said, for 30 years when they were no longer Echolyn, but playing in two different bands. Phineas Gage, always almost, and went to that Near Fest. And when you guys premiered May, and after the show, I caught up with Ray, and Ray asked me, what'd you think of it? And I was very drunk. And I remember, yelling at him that I said, dude, you guys were killing. And then you had to go full prog. Never go full prog. What is this fucking endless song? Blah, 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 blah. And Ray, being the awesome guy that he is, just looked at me, understood I was just a drunk, stupid Mexican guy. And what he did is he took me to the merch room and he handed me a copy of May and told me, listen to this in a couple of days. And it was a couple of weeks when I discovered I had it. And I threw it in the player. And like I did most of my records, I like to listen to them in the dark with headphones by myself. So there's nothing but me and the music. And I was reduced to fucking tears. It was one of the most powerful, beautiful things I've ever heard. And even though I had heard it live and it was great, I was shit-faced. So I've been on a perpetual apology tour about this record because I had to tell everybody that I saw, you need to get this record. And I would buy copies from Chris Lemke to give to people. You have to hear this. It's just an incredible album. So, and of course, after that, everything you've done after has been great. I mean, I love The End is Beautiful. That one hits a little different. It's a little dark.
Yeah, it's dark, yeah.
But I love it. Everything has been great. The so-called Window, fucking fantastic. I mean, you guys can do no wrong in my book, but May will always be number one with, the infamous Sony record being a very special record because you guys brought it in that one.
Yep.
But it doesn't have, to me, the emotional depth and power of May. May is timeless, dude. You guys are now fucking immortal. We're all going to be dead, but there will always be people talking about that record and listening to it. It's not going to be a massive phenomenon, but it's going to be important to people. It's wonderful. So thank you for doing it. Really. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Before we go on to Pete, since you're still talking about May, I have two quick stories about that. So when these guys finished the May album, they invited me up to the studio to hear it. And they sat me down in Brett's chair in the control room, and Ray and Chris sat on a bench behind me. Brett had listened to it so many times for mixing it. He comes in, he goes, I can't hear this fucking thing again. Hit play and walked out. And I didn't know it was coming. I had no idea. So 49 plus minutes later, this thing ends. And I just turned around to Ray and Chris. I went, wow. That's all I can say. That was it. It was unbelievable. And I've shared this story, I think, with these guys before when I was talking about how, it's such an epic track. My family and I, we were on vacation in Maine years ago. And I had this thing in my head, what I wanted to do. I had May on my iPhone, where the hell I was listening to. And there was a big sort of lawn out in front of the house that looked over the bay. And it was a beautiful sunny day. I went out, I literally laid in the grass on my back with my arms out and listened to May in its complete, all 49 minutes, and just soaked it in. And it was just a glorious listening experience. That's not in the dark with the headphones, but it was just where I was, how epic the scenery was. That song just had to be played and be listened to. And nobody bothered me. No mosquitoes bit me, nothing. It was phenomenal.
Wow.
May is your Tommy, man. You should be very proud of yourself, truly.
That's a mouthful, Luis.
That's your Tommy.
All right,
Thanks,
Pete.
man.
Are you? Can you talk?
I'm gonna try. I mean, I generally go back and forth between May, Suffocating the Bloom, and As the World. Those are kind of, I mean, I like all the albums, but I mean, As the World and Suffocating the Bloom were the first ones I got. I got As the World first, and then I immediately went out and found a copy of Suffocating the Bloom. And those are really special. I mean, that's like the early days. It's young and hungry and doing all sorts of really cool things. And it's, great vocal harmonies and all the little gentle giantisms and all that stuff. I love that stuff. But May is just beautiful, really beautiful. And I was in the audience when you guys played it at Near Fest and, thinking how brave it is to go out there and play this gargantuan epic that nobody's heard before, but it was great. And it was great. And it holds up really, really well. And I think it's really underrated when, we talk on this channel, on the show specifically, a lot about like epic songs and, the epics of yesteryear versus the epics of more recent times. And I don't think May gets brought up enough as one of the great kind of expanded songs and epic songs of the last 30 years. So it's a great achievement. But yeah, your whole catalog has lots to love for just any kind of listener. So we're happy that we've got new music coming from you real soon.
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks, Peter.
Of that music. So you guys have 9 new songs. Obviously, 2 of them are long epics. I like to hear from each of you 3 guys. I know Jordan had to drop off because of some family stuff. But from the collection of 9 new songs, can you pick a favorite or 2? Like which ones can you not wait for the rest of us to hear?
Yeah, Ray, do you want to go?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go back to Cul-de-sacs and Tunnels because that's kind of maybe one of the older songs that we did. I think was that a B-side from 2015 or something, Brad, or was that after that?
Yeah, it was an extra song. We never finished it, but I have a recording of it live in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I wrote the first set of lyrics to it, and they just didn't work.
Yeah, I should say this, right? Since you're talking about it, that song had a long evolution where we played it live at Catapult, the 5 of us back then, recorded it, just a rough version, along with a bunch of other ones, like really cool tunes, like songs you guys, Chris and Ray, you brought in, and we have versions of those. But I was then going to take that song, Cul-de-sacs, and put it out on my solo album that came out in 2017. And Ray, I had you write words for it. And Chris, you came up and played piano on it, thankfully. And that song just didn't make my solo album. And then when we started working on these, I want to say like Chris's piano parts are the same parts and his keyboard parts are the same parts that he was going to put on my solo record. Ray rewrote all the words. And then we just got Jordan on there and we built the song around it. And it's actually a testament to how we do write together. And we're not trying to do anything different because Chris played exactly the same way as if he was going to play on my solo album, an early 2015 Echolyn song, or even something that's coming out in 2025 and 2024. It's the same dude. That's 10 years ago. Chris was playing piano, and there it is. And it's so cool. It's digital now. It's great. Like you don't lose the quality. When I listen to it, Chris, it makes me weep because I recorded the piano on my piano downstairs, my 100-year-old piano. The window was open, and it was summertime, and the cicadas were coming through. Yeah. So they're there, and I build on that in the production of it for this version. I actually left them in, and then I went out my back porch and I recorded some sounds too, and blended them in the intro and the ending of the song now that fits the whole thing that you're playing there over that. And it's so beautiful. And I always think like, oh, that's Chris from like almost, 9 years ago playing piano on this song and organ and everything. So funny. Anyway, Ray, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's quite all right. And I think another one for me would be On We Blur. That for me, that's like a sleeper on the album. It's a killer tune, but it could be one of those ones that you don't listen to all the time, but then when you do, why haven't I been paying this song more attention? I think also it was one of the first words or songs that I wrote the words for. So that one, it got me
You did all the you did all the words on that one.
I, I think you came up with a couple of key lines towards the end that helped, like fill in
Maybe,
some
yeah.
spaces. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Does that song have any relation to Accumulated Blur?
no,
Okay.
not that I know of.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh boy. I think on the 7 album, so Time Silent Radio 7, I'm torn between two favorites. But I think Tiny Star is one for me. About a month ago, when we were getting ready to release the Kickstarter campaign, we were back and forth about what song do we put out first as the first thing people have heard from us in 10 years, 9 years. And that just feels like it captures all of Echolyn. It has the power, the beauty, the depth, just everything. And so I feel like that one is there. There's another song called Radio Waves on the 7 album that I also love. But I feel like Tiny Star is that. And then the toss up is on the Time Silent Radio 2 album. I have an equal love for both of the long tracks simply because it's something we as a band do very well. And back to being artists, like we don't set a bar that says we're going to write a long song. We set a bar that says let's write a new song. And then the next thing you know, the song's racing us down a path that's 17 minutes long, or in the case of Water, 28 minutes long. So I think between that handful of songs, I'm excited for people to hear this. I'm very excited for you guys to hear it because I feel like this album has a lot of May in it. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things that it's going to hit people from different angles. But the fact that so many of you mentioned May tonight, we've said as we were writing this feels May-like at times. And I think, although it's not one long song, it is 93 minutes of music, both albums combined. I think there's going to be sort of this moment of people going, wow, it's a little bit of everything that we've ever released, but it definitely has the earthiness and the organic of May in it. And that excites me because I am nervous to put the album out in 3 weeks, but I'm so ready for the world to hear it because we're the only ones listening to it right now. And I can't talk to you guys about it because you haven't heard it yet.
Well, I could be at Brett's house in a half an hour.
I know. Chad, we should figure out a way to have you over to the studio. We could have a couple beers maybe before Christmas. Maybe if you want to sit and listen to it or something.
I'd love to. Absolutely. You know me. I bring the beer.
Yeah.
He does bring the beer too.
Yep, I know that. He's a man of his word.
Speaking of beer, so
he brings good beer too.
Brett, would you say that Ray's voice stays as good as it does because of all the PBR?
Yes. Yep. It's a PBR soaked voice.
No preservative.
I haven't had a PBR in I don't know how long, Chad.
We had someone. We were in Nashville, dude. We had we bought a 12-pack. We had a 12-pack in Nashville.
And I don't drink when we sing right away.
It's true.
Right. My favorite Ray PBR story is there's one time years ago, Brett and Ray were over here. That was the infamous throw the football at the cricket night.
Did we get it?
And Ray, I was going inside for another beer. We were sitting outside on the deck, and Ray goes, "Oh yeah, grab me one while you're in there." Well, Ray brought some PBR, and it was in the vegetable crisper, and I told him I wouldn't touch it, so I brought it out in salad tongs and handed it to him.
Are you sure that wasn't I know I brought peels one afternoon. I don't know if it was a peels or not.
It could have been a peels.
I think
it could have been peels, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we never did get that cricket as much as we tried throwing the football in the tree.
I'm looking forward to everybody hearing the two on Time Silent Radio 2. I think they're some of our best songs that we've ever, if not our best songs we've written. They're like May, and they're like Some Memorial. They're like Island. They're like all that stuff, except they're more mature now. I think the words they're great. It's just they're beautiful songs, and they're like a journey song, Chad, that you could get in the car. I do it all the time. I drive down to Wilmington to teach at the university. It's about an hour and a half drive, and I can get through both albums, and it's like I'm there in a second. I'm just lost. And I've been living with this stuff for years now, and it's still I find like new things in it, and it's
awesome.
they're really captivating. I can't wait till you guys hear those.
Well, we
Well,
can't
we
wait.
absolutely cannot wait to hear them. There's no question about that. And we can't thank you guys enough for coming on tonight and to talk about it and to pump it up and get everybody else excited for it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Just,
You guys are
just
the
a
best.
plug, our website is still active, the www.echolyn.com. That's how people are doing this pre-sale right now. And that's just a great place for anyone just discovering us for the first time. We have new fans finding us every day. Like, I just heard about you guys. And it's like, what? We've been around for 30 some.
Well, I just want to say thank you. And also, I'm glad that this was a good pretext for me to see your fucking mugs again after all this time.
Smooches,
And
bitches.
I love you, man.
love
We've
you
known
too,
each other
man.
for too long. And I really wish this record to be more successful than you think it will be. Because I'm sure it deserves to be widely heard, as every other one of your records. But with time, you guys age like good wine. So I
Well
think
said.
it's going to be
Pushing it.
fantastic.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
So please go check out the new albums coming out real soon from Echolyn. And we want to thank Brett, Ray, and Chris from Echolyn for joining us today. Thanks to Chad for setting all this up. Thanks for Lewis and Eric for jumping on as well. And visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together.
All the damn time.
Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. I'm pleading with you. Please do that in my last couple of moments of vocal anything here on this episode. Thank you so much because YouTube loves those likes. And we'll see you soon here for more stuff. I'm P. Pardo. Thanks for watching us on In the Prog Seat. Tune in. We'll have one more episode before the end of the year. Our favorite prog albums of 2024. Till then, have a good one, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.